Happy coding.
Hey there, long time no see, Kevin here, and in this video I am going to build on the previous video where we learned about if statements, and I am going to get input from the user and do various things with that. So this video starts immediately after the previous video. For me, I literally clicked stop recording and then start recording. So if you haven't watched that video yet, I recommend watching that one first on if statements. Um, but I'm starting exactly where I left off in the last video. So I have this web page where on load, actually, that's when I click this button, I get input from a user and I get the current time from the user. And when I hit submit, I call this say hello function. And based on the input, I do different things and I print different messages based on what time it is. So if I enter like 14 for 2 p.m., I get good afternoon. And if I enter like 20 for like 10 p.m., I get good night, and so on and so forth. So in this video, I want to expand on that to talk about the other types of input and how you can get values from them and feed them into if statements. So yeah, I'm just going to dive in. I think that's kind of always what I do. So I'm going to rejigger this a little bit. I think, yeah, instead of like good morning, good afternoon, good night, I'm going to go back to a project that we did a couple weeks ago now, and I'm going to go back to the idea of a quiz. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and the user gives me an answer to the question, and then I basically say like correct or incorrect for each. So I'm going to change this a bit, and I'm going to say, mm, maybe I'll start with my HTML just to get myself going in the right direction. So I don't know, as always, my example is going to be a B thing. So I'm going to say B quiz, and I'm going to get rid of a lot of this, and maybe I'll say like, what is the scientific name for a honeybee? Honeybee. And I'll have input, and the ID here will be like, I don't know, scientific name input. And then my button on click, instead of say hello, I'll rename this to submit. And then I'll still stick with my loading, I guess. Okay, so I renamed this to submit. So I'm going to go up here, change my function to submit. And now what do I want to do? I think maybe just get rid of most of this. So I'm going to get rid of my if statements. And I'm going to get rid of my current hour and most of this actually. So scientific name input is what I want here. Scientific name input element. It's kind of a long name, but that's okay. And what did I call it? Call it scientific name input. And then I have my output element. And for now, maybe just to get something working, I will say output element dot inner text equals what do I want to do? I want to give the value maybe. So I'll say like let scientific name equals, oh my goodness, scientific name input element dot value. And I'll just say output element dot inner text equals scientific name. Scientific name. It's going to be a miracle if I did not spell anything wrong. So maybe I should open up my JavaScript console while I'm here. And oh boy, that's going to get real gross. I'll put it below, even though my head's in the way. It's fine. I'll hit refresh. And okay, what is a scientific name for a honeybee? Looks like the last thing I typed in this input was 20, but that's fine. So I'll just say like testing, hit submit. And okay, so my input and my output are connected. That's just like, it's not my end goal, but I just wanted to confirm that my code is sort of doing something. And so I'm just thinking about how I want to structure this. So maybe I'll actually have a different output for each question. Yeah, that seems okay. So I'll change this to, oh boy, scientific name output. I definitely should have named these shorter things, and I'll move it up to be like above the button. Maybe I'll say, instead of loading, I'll just have like a blank, or maybe just dot 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 for now. And yeah, let's see what that looks like. And yeah, sure. Okay. I see this red, but this is complaining about the lack of a little icon in the tab, but that's fine. And so I change the name of my output, my ID of my output. So I'll change this to, oh boy, oh my goodness, scientific name output element equals the element returned from get element by ID with that. And here I will just still just output it. So I'm just confirming that my code works. This is how I code. I code like one line at a time, test that it works, still works. Okay. And so what I want to do here is combine what I have so far, which is stuff we learned in the previous weeks, with the new thing that we learned, which is the idea of if statements. And so I have the scientific name, and I don't just want to output it like directly to the page. I want to check, is the user correct or not? And so to do that, I have the scientific name here, and let's see, what I will do is I will have an if statement, which says if scientific name, and then I'm going to use the triple equals. So triple equals 1, 2, 3, and I'm checking, is the scientific name equal to the string? And now I have to go look up what the scientific name for a honeybee is. I know it's Apis mellifera. I have no idea how to spell it though. Apis mellifera. Sure, 2 L's, I guess. I'll copy paste. And sure. So I'm inside of my if statement here. So if scientific name is equal to the text Apis mellifera, so close my parenthesis, open up a curly brace, and then I want to set my inner text of my output element to something like correct. You know, maybe I'll just keep it simple for now. And I'll just leave it at that, a single if statement for now. And I'm going to make sure I have this copied because I'm not going to spell it right. So I'll save that, refresh, and I have testing here. So I'm going to hit submit. Nothing happens because this if statement is not being executed, the content of it. So if I paste this in and I hit submit, now I do see correct because this text that I've typed in does equal what I was expecting. And so if I go back to, I don't know, blah, and I hit submit, nothing will change because I'm just not changing it at all. So maybe I'll add an else statement. Else, and you can put it on the same line as the curly. You can put it on the next line. Doesn't really matter. I tend to put it on the same line, but it's all good. So else, I want to say, I don't know, something like try again. And then I need to close my curly brace and be annoying about alignment. So I'll save this and refresh. And now if I type blah and I hit submit, I get try again. If I type this, Apis mellifera, I hit submit, I get correct. Cool. So this is a single question that asks a question, gets an input, and then says like correct or incorrect. And so I have this block of code. I'm tempted to sort of like scrunch it together, but maybe I'll just add a comment. Scientific name, sure. And then I'm going to have a new section. And what do I want to do here? I'll say like number of wings, maybe. I'll ask about that, number of wings. So I'll have a new section. I could maybe surround these with divs. So sure, I'll do that. Div class equals, I'll say question. And I will close out my div, and I'll be annoying about indentation. So I will have a new div with my next question, div class equals question. I haven't actually styled that yet, but maybe I will. We'll see. And in this case, what do I want? I want to ask a question. How many wings does a bee have? Close my p tag. And I want an input, so I'll say input ID equals wings dash input. I guarantee you that in 5 seconds I'm going to say, wait, did I call that wings or wing? And then I'll have an output. So p ID equals wings output, and I need a quotation mark, and here I'll just say dot 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 again. So close out my p tag. I'm going to have one button. I could have a different button for every question, but I think I'll just have one button down at the bottom, and that'll be how I answer every question. That's okay. So I have my HTML, so I'll save that and refresh. I don't actually do anything with this input. So if I have like a 5 here and I hit submit, the first answer still works, but I haven't actually touched this yet. So I will do something very similar to what I did here, but I will check the number of wings. So I will say, get my input, let wings input, I think it was, see, I told you, I think it was wings input element equals document dot get element by ID, wings input. And I'm closing out my parenthesis and adding a semicolon, and I'll say let, I don't know, wing count, number of wings. I'll say wings count equals wings input element dot value. Okay. And then I want my output. So let wings output element equals document dot get element by ID, and wings dash output. And for now, I'm just going to say wings output element dot inner text equals wings count. So I'm just like confirming that, like, I just wrote like kind of a lot of code. I added some HTML and I added some JavaScript, and I don't have everything completely done, but that's okay. In fact, that's good, because I'm going to check that what I have so far works. So I'm going to refresh, and if I hit submit, okay, I am outputting 5, so I am getting my input and my output. It's all kind of connected, so that's good. And now I will add an if statement. And I think now I'm looking at it, I kind of do like it kind of smushed together like this, so maybe I will kind of change my code up here. So I'll just kind of smush it together so it's all like one block, and I can always come back and add new lines if I'm needing to mess around in here, but for now, I kind of like the smush together style. So kind of personal preference. So I want to add an if statement, and what do I want to do? I want to say if wings count is equal to 4, because that's the correct answer. That's how many wings bees have. Then I want to take my output, and I want to say, I don't know, something like, correct is kind of boring. So I'll say that is right. I don't know, maybe that's not any more exciting than correct, but I just want to be a little different. So for now, I'll just hit save and refresh. So if I hit submit with 5, nothing happens. If I hit submit with 4, I do see that is right. So I want to be maybe a little, I don't know, kind of interesting here. I don't just want if else. So maybe I'll have like, I don't know, if wings count is 2, then I will say wings output element dot inner text equals that is a fly. Common misconception: if you see a bee and it only has 2 wings, it's not a bee, it's a fly. And then I want this to be an else if, and then maybe I'll have an else that says else, give myself some white space and close out my curly, and I'll say wings output element dot inner text equals what kind of creature is that? All right, so I've got my semicolon out there. Yep, okay, save that and refresh. So how many wings does a bee have? 4, that is right. 2, that is a fly. 9, what kind of creature is that? So I'm doing more than just 1 or 2 things. I'm doing, well, 3 things here, based on whether I've used like specific values in my input. So that works, and in fact, the way I've structured it here with this else and what kind of creature is that will actually deal with the next thing I was going to talk about, which is like, what if I say, I don't know, like yellow here? How many wings does a bee have? Yellow. That's, that's not a number. And so we saw this in the last video, where if it's kind of nonsense and you're comparing it to a number, it's just going to be false. So if I hit submit, I'm going to say, what kind of creature is that? And that kind of makes sense here. But one thing I might try to do is restrict this to be a number. And so if I don't know how to do that, I'll say like HTML input number. And sure, input type equals number. And yeah, try it myself. And yeah, quantity between 1 and 5. Let's try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And oh, I can't click that button anymore. If I click down, can't do that anymore. And yeah, so it's like input type equals number. ID equals, a number. Okay, ID and then min and max. Okay, so I want this type equals number. So maybe I will try that. So I'll add that into my code down in my HTML. And where's that? ID equals wings input. And I'll say this is type equals number. So I'll save that and refresh. And okay, my yellow went away, and it's kind of hard to see probably, but there's these like teeny tiny arrows that I can click like sort of inside the input. And if I click that, I can choose a number. So that's cool. I could add a min and max. So like in this case, I can go down to negative numbers. That probably doesn't make sense. So maybe I'll do that. I'll say min equals 0, because you can have 0 wings, sure. So if I refresh, I'm going to have to kind of play with it. Yeah, so now I can no longer go below 0, but I can go as high as I want, and maybe that makes sense. I think I can technically still type in here, but if I am clicking these arrows, then it keeps me locked into the number and in the range that I'm in. So that's something. That's an improvement. So I'll say, that's a number type, and there are other types of input. So let's see if W3 Schools here lists them. Oh, whoops. So maybe not. Oh, HTML input type attribute. Yeah, here we go. So lots of different types. I can get colors, dates, files, all kinds of stuff. And we'll get into some of these, but you can play with this as well. But that's a specific example of the type attribute to make it a number input. Okay, so now I have 2 questions in my quiz. I might be a little annoying and try to style the divs. So div class equals question, and so maybe I'll style that just because if I add more questions, it's going to be kind of hard to see. So I'll say question div, and I'll give this a let's see, a border of, I don't know, thin, solid gray. And I'll give it maybe a margin bottom of 25 pixels. And let's see what that looks like. Sure, maybe I'll add some padding. Padding, 25 pixels. Refresh that. And yeah, okay, that's not bad. Maybe I will be super duper annoying and say body background color light yellow. And I don't know, I'm being like just honest, like this is how I code. I kind of go I don't want to say all over the place, but like it kind of bothers me if my styling isn't like, if it's just like the default. So I'm not saying this is the best styling in the world, but just a little bit goes a long way. And so I feel a little bit better about this, so I can keep trucking. All right, so I've got my 2 questions, and I'm going to keep going just to show you a couple of different kinds of input and how you can sort of work with that. So next, I want to try a drop down. So I have 2 inputs where I can either enter text or a number, but that's pretty open, and I can kind of type whatever I want in there. So if I want to limit it to a dropdown with only a few options, I can do that. So if I don't know how to do that ahead of time, I can say like, I don't know, HTML dropdown element, hit enter. And looks like the results are sort of pointing me to a HTML select tag. So, all right, some AI stuff, whatever. W3 Schools, MDN. I've been on W3 Schools already, so maybe I'll pick MDN. And All right, looks like I want select. Oh, this is a big one. That's way too many, but this is like select name equals pets, ID equals pet select. This says please choose an option. Okay. And yeah, okay, this kind of works. Maybe it's kind of a big option, but it looks like the way it works is a select tag with option elements inside of it, and those option elements have values and then sort of content. So sure, tempted to copy paste this whole thing. You know what? I will, because that's, if you're coding by yourself, that's probably what you're going to do. So I will do the same thing. So first I need a div. So I'll say div class equals question and close out my div. And what does my question want to be? I'll say, what is a corbicula? And I'll have a select dropdown, and I'm gonna fix my formatting, even though I'm probably going to delete most of this in a second. And sure, kind of lines up. And the way this seems to work is my, oh, that's annoying. Okay, my select element has an ID, a name. I don't think we're going to use name actually, so I'm going to get rid of that. And my ID is going to be, what I want to call this, corbicula input. I could say dropdown, but I'm going to be consistent with what I have used for my other IDs, just because, as you have seen, I will forget what I name it if I'm not consistent. And they have this like please choose an option thing at the beginning, and I think I'm not going to have that, and I'm going to maybe just get rid of most of these. All right, so I think what's happening here? I get really obsessed over white space. It doesn't really matter, but something's off there. But all right, I'm gonna stop worrying about it. All right. So I have my select. I said I would stop worrying about it, but I can't. All right, now it's good. All right. I have my select, and inside of that I have an option, and it looks like the value is just a lowercase kind of like ID kind of thing. So what do I want to do? I want to say like this is wax gland, and I'll say wax gland. So I'm asking like a corbicula is a body part of a bee, and I'm asking like what does that mean? So I'll say option value equals I'll say pollen basket and close that out, and I'll say pollen basket, and I'll close out my option. I will say that I am sort of aware of the fact that I've like written kind of a lot of code, so I'm getting a little antsy to refresh, just to double check that things are working. And what do I want here? Like, I don't know, wax. I use wax and honey crop. I cannot type. Honey crop slash option, close that out, and okay, I'll use a dash here. So if I save this and refresh, let's see what happens. I do indeed get what is a corbicula. Okay, cool. That seems to work. Wax gland, pollen basket, honey crop. All right, cool. So I want that's basically my input. So now I'll have an output. So PID equals corbicula output. And I'll just do ... for now, /p. Save that, refresh, and I do see my ... And now in my JavaScript, I'll say this is corbicula. So I want to do something really similar to what I do here. I'm going to say let corbicula input element equals document.get element by ID. Corbicula input, pretty sure that's what I called it. And what do I want to do? I want to say like, so this is a dropdown. This is not an input. So I want to get like the selected value from my dropdown. And so let's see if this says how to do it. Each option should have a value attribute. Okay. A select element is represented in JavaScript by an HTML select object, and this object has a value property which contains the value of the selected button. Okay, cool. Selected option. So let's see what that does. So in my JavaScript, if I say, I don't know, let corbicula answer equals corbicula element dot value, and then I'm just going to output it to my output element. So corbicula output element equals document dot get element by ID corbicula dash output, and then finally corbicula output element dot inner text equals corbicula answer. I chose like the worst words because they're impossible to spell, and I don't know why I did that to myself. But if I refresh, and now I want to select something, so I'll go with wax gland, sure, submit, and ooh, I got an error, and that's good because now I get to show you the process of debugging, because like I've said many times, debugging is a normal part of coding. It happens all the time. You always get errors. It's totally normal. Happens to me all the time. So in this case, I get uncaught reference error. Corbicula element is not defined on line 57. Okay, so let's see where that is. So line 57 is let corbicula answer equals corbicula element dot value, and in this case, this is saying corbicula element isn't a thing. What are you trying to do here? And it's because, of course, I said corbicula input element here. So this is why I try to be super consistent with myself. So I always name things like thing input element, thing output element, just to sort of follow a standard. And I'm not saying you have to do that exact thing, but just trying to be consistent with yourself is helpful in spotting errors like this. So now if I save and refresh over here, and now I go, what is a corbicula? Sure, wax gland is fine, submit, and ooh, okay. So now I've outputted the value, which is wax dash gland, all lowercase, and that corresponds to this line of code. So it looks like the value that I have in my option corresponds to the value that I get in JavaScript from the select element. So I can use that in my code to do different things based on whether I am correct or incorrect. And I know that you are sitting there dying to know, like, what is a corbicula? So we're about to find out. So here in my code, I will sort of replace this line with an if statement. So I'll say if corbicula answer triple equals. And what do I want this to be? I want this to be the value of the correct answer, which, drumroll please, is pollen basket. A corbicula is a little like hair, set of hairs on a honeybee's back legs where it collects pollen, and it's like a little yellow circle, looks like, because it's just a bunch of pollen on a bee's leg. It's very cute. I won't look up a picture here in case people don't like bugs, but if you are a bug person, look up pollen basket on honeybee. Real cute. Anyway, so I'm saying if corbicula answer is pollen basket, then I will say corbicula output element dot inner text equals so cute. I think it's cute. Maybe other people don't. You tell me. So I just have my one if statement, so I'll hit refresh. So now if I have wax gland, nothing happens. If I say pollen basket, though, I hit submit, and so cute. Cool. I'll add an else statement here just for funsies. So I'll say like else, and I'll say corbicula output element dot inner text equals, and I could say just like try again, or I could say like if you answered wax gland, I'll say they do have a wax gland, but it's not a corbicula. But for funsies, I'll just say like not quite. So I've got so cute and not quite. Sure, that works. So I'll refresh, and pollen basket is so cute. Honey crop is not quite. Back to cute, and wax gland is not quite. Okay. So let's see. I only want to do a couple more. I don't want to cover like every single possible input element that you can ever encounter because, like I've said before, I don't expect you to memorize a bunch of like all of the possibilities. I want you to be able to look them up. But I'll run through just a couple more because you do kind of do different things depending on what type of input you're working with. So the next thing I will work with is a checkbox. So let's see how that works. So I'll say HTML. If I didn't know how to do that, I would say HTML checkbox. And sure, looks like checkbox is another type of input. And this has like some extra things that I probably don't actually need. So I'll just copy I'll copy one for now, and I'll just see kind of what it does. So what do I want to do? I want to add another div. So I'll say div class equals question, and in this case I want to have some checkboxes, and I'll say like I don't know, select every valid B part. Sure. /p, and then I'll have a checkbox, and I just copy pasted that, but I want to like look more carefully at it in a second. So I have this, I get so annoyed with the white space. Sure. Okay, so I have this input. It's a type of checkbox. It's an ID. I'm going to give this an ID of, I did not plan this ahead at all. Let's say, leg. Leg checkbox. Sure. Name, I don't think we need the name. I'm going to double check that in a second, and I'll say value equals, I don't know, leg. And then label for, in this case, I want the ID, leg checkbox, and label is leg or legs. Sure. So if I save that and refresh, let's see what that looks like. And now I get select every valid B part, legs, and I can check that. So, okay, I have the syntax for it. I've got an input, a type of checkbox that tells the browser to don't show it as like a text input that you can type into or a number that you can click the buttons for. Show it as a checkbox that you can either check or not. I have given it an ID, and I'm giving it a value of leg, although now I'm looking at it, not convinced we need that. I'm going to delete it. We're going to see what happens. Save and refresh, and sure. And this label for, what this is doing is it's saying this text is a label, well, for the element with this ID, which means if I zoom all the way in, I don't have to only check like literally in the box. I can also click the text, and it changes whether the checkbox is selected. So the label is kind of optional. You could also just make this like a span or something, but then you would have to check the box itself, not the text. So just kind of like a quality of life thing. And maybe I'll add two more. So legs, and I'll just have like two more. So I'll call this one ear, ear checkbox, ears. And the last one will be, I don't know, stinger. Sure. Stinger checkbox and stinger. So just eyeballing it, making sure my IDs are all kind of aligned. And okay, legs, ears, stinger, and they're all checkboxes, and that seems to work. I could be a little annoying and say I want them to be separated, so I'll add like a BR, line break. I could also style that with CSS, maybe use like Flexbox to like move them around with layout, but this works for now. Legs, ears, and stinger. Okay, so now that I have my checkboxes, I want to, well, use them in my HTML. So in this case, let's see, what do I want to do? I think I want to get all three of them, actually, and I want to see whether they're checked. And in this case, I'll just tell you the correct answer is legs and stinger. Bees don't have ears. And I want to check that that's what the answer is. So it's going to be a little different. So here I'll say body parts. And what do I want to do? I want to get every checkbox. So I'll say let legs checkbox, sure, legs. I want to say input element maybe, but I'll just say legs checkbox equals document get element by ID. Legs, what did I call this? See, I always forget. I always forget what I call things. Leg checkbox. Ooh, leg. I want to say legs, ears, and stinger is fine. So legs, ears, and stinger. Legs, checkbox. And for now, I think I'll just have an output. ID equals body part output. Don't get me fired. Slash P. And okay, body part output. So I'll get a reference to that. Let body part output, maybe body parts. Output equals document dot get element by ID and body parts output. And I'm going to double check. Is that what I called it? Body parts output. Sure. Body parts output, and I'll name it element. Body parts output element, and then I'll say body parts output element equals and what? For now, I'll just say legs checkbox dot. I don't even know. I'm going to try value. See if that is a thing, and I'll right click or save and refresh. And so this is legs only. So legs submit, and oh, nothing happened. Why not? Oh, fun. Oh, that's because I said body parts element equals legs checkbox dot value. Of course, I want the inner text equals legs checkbox dot value, refresh, and now hit submit, and ooh, on or on again. So I don't know if that's something. So maybe I'll say JavaScript checkbox get is checked. And if I wait for the AI nonsense, let's see if that is a thing. And okay, cool. Looks like there's a checked property. So let's try that. So legs checkbox dot checked. Save that and refresh. And so now if I submit, I see true, which should ring a bell because this is a Boolean. It's either true or false. So if I uncheck it, I will get false. Okay, cool. So I now know how to get like each checkbox and whether each one is checked or not. So I've been coding for like an hour now, and so I'm getting a little like antsy, but let's see how I want to do this. I kind of want to shorten this and show you sort of a shortcut. So sure. So instead of legs checkbox, I'll say like legs checked, because I only really care about the element, the legs checkbox element, to get its well checked property. Similar to how I only ever care about the input element to get its value. So if I have code like that where I create a variable and then I immediately use it and I only use it once, I can collapse that. So instead of saying legs checkbox element and then legs checked equals legs check element dot checked, I'm going to shorten that into one line. So I'll say dot checked. And so what I'm saying here is legs checked equals whatever I get from this element and its checked property. So I'm just shortening 2 lines of code into 1 line of code because I want to be lazy and do the exact same thing. So what did I call this? Legs and ears and stinger. So I'll say ears checked and stinger checked. And this is ears and stinger. And so just to test that this works, maybe what I will do is say like legs checked plus, and I'll have like, I don't know, maybe a dash, plus ears checked plus a dash plus stinger checked. And I'm just like confirming that I'm getting the values that I think I am. So in this case, if I hit submit, I should see false, false, false. If I check ears, false, true, false, legs, true, true, false, and now true, true, true. All right, cool. And what do I want to do? I want to confirm the correct answer here is to check both legs and stinger. And so I want to basically say if legs is checked, ears is not checked, and stinger is checked, then it's correct. So I can do that in an if statement. So I will say if, it's kind of small, isn't it? Sure. If legs checked and this is from the reading from this week. So this and ampersand ampersand is the and operator. So I'm saying if legs is checked and not ears checked. So I'm saying legs is checked and ears checked is not true. I'll come back to this in a second actually. And stinger checked. Then I want to output like correct or something. So I'll just say correct for now. And I want to maybe like zoom in on this logic. So what this is doing is it's saying if legs checked, this is true or false. So if true, and I say not ears checked. So ears checked is itself a Boolean, true or false. The exclamation point is not, and in this syntax, the way I have this will basically flip ears checked to be whatever it wasn't. If it was false, it'll become true. If it was true, it'll become false. So I want ears checked to be false. And the way I check that in an if statement is if it's not false, then it'll evaluate to true. So it's kind of confusing, but the way I think about it is it's like kind of like how a human would read it. Like if legs is checked and ears is not checked and stinger is checked, then it's correct. So I'm going to just save this and refresh. And so I'll check my correct state here, legs, ears, stinger, submit, and I get correct. And I'm going to refresh because of the way I've structured my code. So now if I do check ears, nothing should happen. Okay, cool. And finally, I have an else statement here. I could maybe have another else if and be like, if you do select ears, you know what, actually, maybe I will do that. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll get a little fancy here. So I'll say like, else if ears checked. I will say body parts output element dot inner text equals bees do not have ears, because they don't. And then maybe else I'll just have like a fallback that says like, this is if you have not checked either legs or stinger. I'll just say like incorrect. Body parts output element dot inner text equals nope. Sure. So I'll save that, refresh. And so now if I have selected ears and I hit submit, I get bees do not have ears. If I unselect legs and unselect ears, I get nope. And if I select the proper thing, I get correct. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is honestly getting a little longer than I intended, but I'll just do one more because it's a little different than the others, and it kind of builds on the idea of there's different types of input. You look up what it is, like the syntax for it, what tags you use, what fields you use in JavaScript, and combine it all. So the last thing I will introduce is the idea of a radio button. So let me smush some of this code together now that I know that it works. And if I sort of look at my checkboxes, I can select like any combination of them. And in this case, that's what I want. I want to let the user select any combination that they want. And I could have even more if I really wanted to. But what if I wanted to limit it to only selecting one? Well, I could use a dropdown, but another thing I can use is radio buttons. So I'm gonna look that up. HTML radio button. And looks like it's another type of input, and they go a little extra with like name and stuff. We don't really need that. Actually, maybe in this case we do. We're going to see in a second. And sure, I'll try it myself and see what happens. Okay, and in this case, what does submit do? Oh, it's like pretending that it goes to a form. Okay, whatever. So I will steal some of this syntax. Actually, yeah, sure. So type is radio. So this is very similar to a checkbox, only instead of checkbox, it's radio. So I'm tempted to steal this, but I'm also tempted to start from scratch. And in this case, I will just steal it. So I want a new question. So I'll say div class equals question. And in this case, my question will be, what does AB produce? /p, and then I'm going to paste in the code that I stole. So input type equals radio. In this case, my ID will be, I don't know, I'll just say honey, or honey radio. And name, I think, does matter. So in this case, I'll say produce, and value will just be like honey. And then I want a label for, and in this case, my for was HTML, but I renamed that to radio honey. In this case, honey. All right. So I have my input and I have my label. And as always, I'm obsessed with white space. But if I save this and just refresh and see what it looks like, I get what does AB produce. And in this case, I only have one radio button. And, oh, cool. Once it's selected, I can't unselect it. So I'll add another radio button. And I'm kind of doing bad things by copy pasting code so much, but I'm trying to rush a little bit more for you. So in this case, I'll say like this is milk, maybe. Value is milk. I don't know if we need the value. We're going to see in a second. And label for milk radio, and I'll say milk. So now that I have two options in my radio buttons, if I refresh, well, I'm going to add a BR. If I refresh, now I see what does a bee produce, and I can say either honey or milk. And notice that when I select one, the other one becomes unselected. And the way this works is through this name. So if an input of type radio has a name, then any other radio button with that same name becomes unselected when I select the other one. So in this case, let's see if I like change this to like some nonsense and I refresh. Now they will be independent, and I've kind of gotten myself into a corner here because once I've selected one, I can't unselect it. So you have to make sure that your names are that they are consistent, that they line up to have this like built-in functionality of you can only select one. So I will have one more, and I will say call this one like, I don't know, wool. Be cool if they produce wool. Maybe I should say silk. That's maybe a little more believable, but whatever. I'm being silly. So in this case, it's wool, and if I save that and refresh, then I can only select one of them, honey, milk, or wool, and they're not like a checkbox because I can only select one, and selecting one unselects the others. That's kind of how radio buttons work. So while I'm down here, I'm going to give myself an output. P ID equals produce output, and I'll just have ... for now. And what do I want to do? I want to go up into my JavaScript. I'm now realizing I don't think we are actually going to use this value, but we're gonna see in a second actually. So I have body parts, and in this case, I could get like whether each one is checked. I actually don't know if it's going to be checked. It probably is, but I don't know off the top of my head. So JavaScript radio button is checked. Let's see. Is it also the checked property? Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, okay. W3 schools says checked. Okay, cool. All right, maybe that will work. But I think just for the sake of time, like I could get every radio button, and like if milk was selected, I could output something like, no, bees don't make milk. That would be gross. I don't know. I mean, if you think about honey, it's kind of gross. But just for the sake of time, I think I will only get honey because if honey is selected, then it's correct. And otherwise, it means that you either didn't select anything or you selected one of the other ones. And so we can tell that it's false. So in this case, I would say produces. And see, I knew what I was going to rename it something else. I'll say produces output and oh man, I was just needing these produces. Sure. All right, so I called it honey radio. So in this case, I'm going to do that shortcut thing I did before. So I'll say let, I'll say honey checked equals document.get element by ID. And honey radio. And I'll just jump straight to my if statement, actually. If honey checked, then I can say, well, I'll get my output element. Produces output element equals document.get element by ID. Produces output, and if honey checked, produces output element dot inner text equals, I don't know, delicious. And I'm just going to finish this out. I'll say else produces output element dot inner text equals, that would be weird. All right. So that's kind of a lot of code. I'm kind of guessing that I'll probably get an error, but let's just see it and see what happens. So if I refresh and I select honey, I get delicious. If I select milk, ooh, I don't get anything. Ooh, so something weird is happening. If I select wool, I get nothing. And why is that? I told you I would make a mistake. And in this case, I don't see anything in the JavaScript console. This is still just complaining about my icon missing. And so I'm kind of just staring at this code that I just wrote. This is why I code the way I do. Imagine if I had tried to code all of that and I got an error. Like, where on earth would it be? But in this case, I know that it's probably one of these lines. And in this case, this is jumping out to me, this inner text. If you see, I made a typo here. So inner text. Okay. So let me hit save and refresh. And finally, I can say honey, delicious, milk. Still don't see anything. Ooh. So I must have still made a mistake. Let's see. Produces output element, inner text. Let's see. Suspicious. Honey, submit, milk. Okay, so I'm a little stumped, and so I'll say, like, here's some things I usually try if I get into this sort of state where I'm like, nothing's jumping out at me. So maybe I'll just try to console.log, and I'll say here. Because what I'm trying to confirm is, like, is this line of code running at all or not? So if I refresh, I get honey, I see submit, okay, I don't see here yet, which is what I expect. And now, if I hit submit, ooh, I still don't see here. I'm now nervous that this is the problem with NeoCities where it does not update the content. So let me see, like, I don't know, bquiz2 up here. Save that and refresh. And no, that is updating. Okay, so my content is updating, but my JavaScript does not seem to be doing what I expect. So why not? Huh. So maybe I will print out the value of honey checked, console.log, Honey checked, colon plus honey checked. This is a normal way of debugging. I'm just like, I want more information. Like, what is the state of my code when I get into this like error case? So, ooh, honey checked. Oh, I think I get it. See, this is what I get for trying to write so much code all at once. I'm like, this video is getting long. I'm getting a little self-conscious about that. So I was trying to like go really fast, and that's when you make mistakes. And sure enough, I'm making a pretty big mistake here. So, oh, you can't see that because my dumb's head in the way, but this is what I got when I tried to print out honey checked, and I get this weird like object HTML input element. And that's weird because I expect honey checked to be a Boolean. I thought that would be true or false, but it's this weird thing. And that's because I tried to shorten this into one line and I forgot the dot checked. And that's a reason to split your code out into those multiple lines, is to make it like really explicit, like what each part of it is doing. So it's pros and cons. In this case, I think that will fix it though. So let's refresh. And now if I select milk and submit, that would be weird. Honey, delicious, wool, that would be weird. Okay, so now it's working, and it was all because of that dot checked. All right, so I'll get rid of my console.logs. And I will wrap things up because this is way too long. So what I have done in this video, or what we have done, is we have combined a few of the topics that we've learned over the last few weeks. So we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we have HTML that has input elements, different kinds of input elements. And then we have JavaScript that gets those input elements and then uses if statements to do different things based on the values and make your page kind of dynamic and more interesting. So I am extremely tempted to style this submit button. I won't, even though it's really annoying me, because that's not the point. You know how to do that if you want to. The point is that we are really like combining all of the fundamental languages of web development, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, to create this like holistic experience for your web page. And this is the like baseline foundation of web development, is HTML content styled by CSS, and then JavaScript that interacts with those elements to make your page do stuff. In this case, we created a quiz, but you can imagine other uses of this based on your user input. You're doing different things. So I'll leave it there. I do have one more video. I will try to keep that one as short as possible. And that is the idea of like changing variables over time, and that will come in handy for this week's project. But I'll see you in that video. And for now, I will say thank you for watching this long video. Maybe take a break before you watch the next one. And as always, of course, happy coding.